Yesterday, the cost of living crisis intensified with the introduction of higher energy prices that will mean hundreds more on average household bills. Bills are expected to rise by an average of 54%. Joining us now from the Labour Party is Louise Haigh, the Shadow Transport Secretary. Good morning to you.
Morning, Jenny.
So I know you're here because you want to talk about your new research about council tax. What have you found?
It's actually the Local Government Association that have done some research across councils across England that has shown that on average Labour councils keep people's council tax down by over £320, and for those on low tax banding, by even more. So I think it kind of blows away the perception that people have had over the years that Tory councils keep people's council tax low. I think in the face of this catastrophe in living standards that people are about to face, Labour councils are deliberately doing everything we can in order to shield people and protect people, in direct contradiction to what Tory councils and this Tory government are doing.
And it's understandable that you would want to draw attention to this research ahead of the local elections. But if cheaper council tax is so important in the cost of living crisis, do you think council tax should just be cut?
Well, we are keeping it as low as possible, but clearly we need tax in order to fund services. That's the whole point of tax in the first place. But we definitely do not believe that the Tories' national insurance tax rise should be coming in at this point. It is the worst possible tax at the worst possible time and completely regressive. So whilst people are facing an enormous rise in their energy bills, in a fall in wages, a fall in pensions, a fall in universal credit, the Tories are actually making things harder for people by increasing their national insurance. And it frankly beggars belief when we think about what people are about to have to pay over the coming weeks and months, that the government would not be doing much more to support people, let alone actually making things harder.
Labour has plans for a windfall tax on oil and gas companies as a way of mitigating the cost of living crisis. How can you ensure that if that was to happen, that these costs wouldn't just be passed on to energy customers?
Well, it's happened by successive governments. Margaret Thatcher did it. George Osborne did it. We made money that goes into the warm homes discount and cuts VAT off everyone's energy bill. So everyone would receive a cut of around £200 because that's as a result of reducing VAT. So that's absolutely guaranteed. And then we'd make sure that money went into the warm homes discount to help about 9 million people.
But how can you ensure that tax on the windfall tax on oil and gas companies, that won't end up passing that cost on to consumers?
Well, I think if we were in government, we'd be meeting with the oil and gas companies to make sure it happened, and if it didn't, then we'd be putting in legislative measures to make sure that it did. I think it's a wider problem in the economy. You know, when we see the price of crude oil come down, we very rarely see that price come down at the pump as well, and that's something I've been raising with the Transport Secretary. You know, when prices go up internationally of oil, then customers, drivers, energy bill payers always face an increase in that rise, but we very rarely see a consequential cut when it comes down. So I think we do need to see legislative measures if North Sea oil and gas producers, petrol retailers are experiencing record profits, but not passing any of those savings on to customers.
The Labour Party has a new slogan, "On Your Side." Do you think that slogan is going to be enough for Keir Starmer to cut through and to appeal to people across the political spectrum, as Labour needs to do, especially given Partygate and I think it's fair to say a real groundswell of anger against the government over that? It's been a bit of an open goal that the Labour Party hasn't been able to capitalise on.
I wouldn't say that. I think, for the last few months we've been consistently ahead in the polls, and now on all the important metrics that the pollsters measure that show whether a party is likely to win a general election, including whether we are fit to lead the economy, we're ahead of the Conservatives in many of those areas. But yeah, we've got more to do to convince the public that we're ready to govern. But I think what people are really seeing now is a chancellor that isn't prepared to take the steps to help them through the coming weeks and months. And Rishi Sunak will may well go down as the chancellor that presided over a historic collapse in living standards and refused to step in. We've got a positive plan for the here and now to help people through the coming weeks and months with the windfall tax, with the plan to not increase national insurance. But we've also got a long-term plan to invest in the economy and to grow it so that we can afford to cut people's taxes in the long run and invest in our public services. The reason Rishi Sunak's having to do what he's doing is because they've presided over such low growth for so long, even pre-pandemic.
And finally, Louise Haigh, I want to get your opinions on these reports this morning that two former Labour staff were asked to sign confidentiality agreements after making complaints of sexual harassment about a senior official. That violates Labour's own policy on NDAs, doesn't it?
I'm really sorry. I don't know the details of that. I've not seen that this morning. I've been on various interviews about this, so I would be. I'm surprised to hear that.
You don't know the details of this. It's been reported throughout this morning. I know that the BBC News website was reporting it before we came on air at 6 a.m. You don't know about it.
No, I'm sorry. I've been on back-to-back interviews this morning talking about cost of living, so I've not seen the details of that. But I'm very surprised to hear it.
Would you be shocked if Labour staff were asked to sign confidentiality agreements when they were trying to blow the whistle on sexual harassment, given what you know about Labour's policy on NDAs?
Yeah, look, I mean, if people are trying to raise the alarm, of course, and I've always stood side by side with victims, both internally within the Labour Party and constituents that are victims of sexual harassment. So if that's how they've been used, then of course that's wrong. But as I say, I don't know the details, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Louise Haigh from the Labour Party, the Shadow Transport Secretary. Thank you so much for joining us.